For Sunday, May 22nd, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, statewide fallout over President Obama's bathroom order. Delta takes a big bite out of the Fox Theater. And hey, Tuesday, let's vote. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us. I don't think it can be understated as a political issue. That being President Obama's order on changing up the way school children go to the bathroom to make way for transgenders. We've seen meetings in Fannin County. We've seen meetings in Gwinnett County. We've seen the governor make a statement, the attorney general make a statement. And Phil, Governor Deal is sticking to a very temperate course on this, whereas in other states, the governors are saying not just no, but hell no.
Well, you're right, and as we discussed on the broadcast last week, shouldn't this be more of a state issue than the Obama federal overreach? But I would like to see a little bit more aggressive posture by both the governor and the attorney general, and we need to actually define what do we mean by transgender. I think when we all sides look at this, I think we need to come up with a legal definition. That's been one of the problems. State School Superintendent Richard Woods has been tasked with trying to come up with a policy, so we'll have to wait to see what he comes up with.
Alexis, I think it was you last week who snuck in the comment, I think you may be right, that what we need is just some single unisex bathrooms. I noticed that's happened at Walton High School in Cobb County.
Yeah, I don't think I went quite that way. I just said need some more stalls, perhaps, so people can have more privacy, because who wants to see anybody use the bathroom? But I think separate but equal is not the answer. It's not the right response. I think there is no problem here. The Gwinnett County School Board meeting, you recalled, they called to discuss it. Nobody showed up for the meeting. Nobody signed up to talk about it. I think it's a non-issue. I really do.
You think it's a non-issue, Jeff? Last week you were all hot and bothered about it, comparing it to civil rights. It may be a non-issue.
You know, I mean, it's a Title IX issue. I think that it's
not
one that was contrived by federal government or the President of the United States. It seems that there was some conservatives looking for an issue to campaign on in the state of North Carolina who brought this to the nation's attention and made it a national issue. And I don't think that it would be a national issue were it not for that bill in North Carolina. Whoever heard of this issue of transgender individuals using a public bathroom before the North Carolina bill? It was not on the federal radar.
I'm going to correct you, and I'm going to correct you hard. Actually, the state of North Carolina's legislation was the second act. The first act was the City of Charlotte City Council passing an order opening bathrooms to anyone. That's the first act.
No, the first act was the City of Charlotte not opening bathrooms, but passing an anti-discrimination ordinance, which they had every right to do. And the state of North Carolina, as you know very well, trying to void that ordinance. That's what this is all about. This is about conservatives looking for an issue, and now it's come back home. And our folks here in Georgia want to do the same thing, especially after they got batted down by the governor on the RIFA bill.
Jeff, let me just say this. It goes back to definition. It's one thing for someone to be a transgender and have had an operation. That's number one. But let me finish.
I cannot disagree with you on that.
But I
think you're right about that.
Okay. So secondly, though, I'm glad we agree on that. But secondly, the way this vague Obama so-called guidance is, someone who thinks that he's a woman could forget about a bathroom, go in a locker room who thinks he's a woman.
You make a very valid point, and that is, are you emotionally, psychologically transgender, or are you physically, surgically transgender?
And that should be the debate.
I think that it makes a difference, and I think that there needs to be some definition.
Is there a problem
we
here?
agree on that.
But is there a problem here that the full weight of the presidency of the United States had to be applied to it? I don't think there was.
I think that when you've got this kind of issue, and North Carolina has created the issue, not just for North Carolina, but for the nation as a whole, you have to have some Title IX guidelines. We're not just talking about federal overreach. We're talking about billions and billions of federal dollars for education and how those dollars are
So
going to be
now it's a
spent.
country run on blackmail instead of on the principles of the republic.
It is
He just
not.
said it.
It is
Blackmail
not.
is what this
That is
administration.
not
Yeah,
true at all.
the coercion
That's
should
total
bother you.
mischaracterization.
I think.
Does it bother you
no.
when it comes to seatbelts and whether you're going to get federal
Yeah.
transportation money and you
Yeah.
should be,
Yeah,
and
yes.
you should wear a seatbelt?
I think everyone's been consistent. That is not
But
bullying.
that-
Is not
that
the
is
way
not
in
the
a
same thing. And
democracy.
it's
You're
not-
correct.
Well,
No,
if
no.
left to its own
This is a
devices, I
representative
would still
republic.
be enslaved. Okay, if we left it to the states to vote or a majority rule.
In the meantime, Governor Deal, by the way, it's kind of fun to watch because he was more temperate than I would have been on this issue. And we saw in a poll from the AJC last week, his vetoes of religious freedom and campus carry haven't really hurt him. He's still got a high approval rating. In other words, his temperate approach to these problems, which I think Jeff and Alexis like, I'm okay with it. I think it's working for him.
Well, I don't know about campus carry. I think the religious liberty legislation, as we've discussed ad nauseum on the broadcast, you could have several versions. You're obviously going to have whatever version is going to come up again. I personally like, and so does the governor, I believe, the Pastor Protection Act, which didn't pass. But I will say this, education is going to be a big issue in the legislature next year, and education reform. In fact, we have a ballot issue on November on the Opportunity School District and to get kids out of failing schools. No matter what the differences are of some legislators, I would hope that they would pull together to do education reform.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
but
gonna
I
be
do think it's
interesting
going to
see-
damage that effort. I really do.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that initiative Opportunity Schools makes on the ballot this fall.
I want to
whether
leave
it
time
passes.
for us to talk a lot about the elections on Tuesday.
Okay.
But one other issue that I think we have to discuss quickly now is another classic example of federal overreach that the business community in Georgia is very much against, and that's President Obama's order to effectively double the number of people in the United States who are eligible for overtime pay, doubling the salary threshold from 20-something to 47,000 a year. Business cannot be interfered with in that fashion.
These
People
are
who
the
aren't
two-
getting paid overtime can quit.
These are the two worldviews of the two political parties here, and you're either going to agree with this overreach, which has gotten out of control, and I think that led to the rise of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, perhaps.
Amen.
Or they let the private market, to your point, figure this out itself and
Well,
let
they're not
business.
gonna
I'm
figure it
going to tell
out.
you what's not happening is the private market at this point in our nation's economy is not figuring out what works best for the middle class, and it's being left to politicians to really grasp at straws like this one, which is a very narrow application because you can't do anything like get minimum wage legislation
Right.
passed through the Congress,
you're-
so you go for little things like this while the middle class in this country suffers and suffers and suffers to the extent that people making $30,000 a year are identifying with a billionaire for president. I mean, that's how much they're
But Jeff,
hurting.
even you have said on this broadcast, to your credit, that you're opposed to too much overregulation in the marketplace because you are a marketplace guy.
Well, yeah, but when you have corporate CEOs making millions and billions of dollars, that's ridiculous, and people can't even buy groceries to feed their families.
God bless you, but you're a socialist and you don't like all of that. But if someone is worth that in a business, we pay them what the market bears,
The
right,
fact
Jeff?
is that
You've
the
always
middle,
said
the middle
that.
class is getting squeezed, and we
Yes.
we are not going to have a healthy economy and a healthy
Now, we
democracy.
agree on the
without-
middle class. The middle
without
class
a
is being
growing and
squeezed.
prosperous middle
We all
class.
agree on the middle class
It's
being
just
squeezed.
not going to happen.
President Obama
And I
hates
think
the
that
middle
this is-
class.
I'm
But-
sorry?
No, he does
President
not.
Obama hates the
Big
middle
government
class.
is not going to
He does
help.
not hate the
Big
middle
government,
class.
big taxes, and big spending isn't going to help the middle class.
President Obama wants liberal elites governing a horde of poor people who vote as instructed.
You know, you talked a couple of weeks ago about the slow economic growth in our country, and it's because middle-income people don't have money to spend.
That's exactly right.
It's just that simple.
And that's why you have two political parties, and why the
know,
party of
we've
big
got-
taxes and big
we have-
spending.
we
is
have
not
an-
fixed.
we have an economy
the
that-
trickle-down economy has never worked.
We
We've
have to
got-
get out. We have to get out. I just want one more thing. Government is so wonderful, isn't it? How's that TSA working out? How are those airplane lines,
Because of
airline
the
lines
sequester,
going?
they can't get any additional funding. They
Let's
haven't been funded.
privatize. It's all
money.
in
See, it's
8
all money.
years. It
Let's
is about money.
privatize.
You
Jeff,
have
are you
to
for
pay people to
privatizing?
work there.
Yeah.
You have
Privatize
to pay
that.
people to work
I
there.
knew somebody was going to say more money.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got to get out. When we come back, we'll turn to when is a golf course a golf course? Is it still a golf course when it's 9 holes? Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
All right, I'm going to change the order during the commercial break. We discussed it. We got to get our priorities straight. We're going to move right to Arthur Blank and the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium that will house the Falcons and a soccer team. And I had kind of overlooked this until Phil called it to my attention. But in this age of the $15 hot dog, Arthur Blank and the Falcons are going to sell us a $2 hot dog.
That's right. I think he's going to undercut everybody in the league, and I'm wondering if he'll even undercut the Augusta National with all of their cheap sandwich and Coke prices. So it's
What's
a good
a pimento
thing.
cheese cost at the Masters?
What is it, $1? Yeah, it's great.
Is it really that inexpensive?
Yeah.
And what's a hot dog going to be at the new Brave Stadium? I don't know.
We don't know.
But you know it's not going to be $2.
Right. And so
Probably something equal to their losing record.
Yeah, they may not. Well, the thing
Just
is,
go and eat
well,
there.
I think Arthur Blank also has constructed the thing so that you pay $10,000 to be able to buy a ticket for the game.
Well, that's true.
And so why,
But, hey,
you can give it away free.
Unlimited soda refills? That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
You got to give the guy credit.
It is a great
good marketing.
He may get
marketing.
your money up
It's a great
front,
marketing
It's a
tool.
great
but you won't have to
marketing
take as much cash to the stadium.
Got us
All right.
talking about it.
Now, in the city of Atlanta, there's another discount deal of some sort going on. I'm not sure I fully understand it. The city council in Atlanta voted Monday to move on an ordinance that would transfer Bobby Jones Golf Course in Buckhead to the state in return for a parking deck at Underground that the city needs to further the next big renovation of Underground.
right.
Well, actually, to further the
Sale.
sale of Underground Atlanta. As you know, Kasim Reed has wanted to divest the city of property that it really doesn't need, whether it was, Pond City Market, which, and that was in progress before he came along, but the Civic Center, Underground Atlanta, and other properties that, you can turn into, reserves and lower taxes for citizens. And I think that he's done that successfully. And so that's really what this is about. In the middle of this deal and the closing of this deal on Underground Atlanta with a new owner, it was discovered that one of the parking structures that should have been included in the deal was not, and that it was state-owned, and this clears that up.
And it looks like a good deal, and the golf course, a historic golf course, will be protected.
But wait a minute, though.
Well,
because
it will be-
we're talking about
sort of.
reducing it from
From
18 holes
I
to
know.
9.
It's still being protected.
I have not, and they call it a reversible course. I'm not sure I know what that means, but
You can play.
I've never played
turn around
Bobby
and play
Jones's
9,
golf course.
Play the other 9.
I've never played it.
It's going to be
So I
for
don't know.
lousy golfers.
But most people want to play 18 holes, not 9.
I'm not a golfer either, and there are those who want to preserve the 18-hole golf course, and so they have organized themselves. But I think that the city is going to prevail, and the state will prevail in this.
Well,
deal
yes,
as
it's
well.
moving through.
And they will preserve the historic clubhouse. I think is going
Right.
to remain.
That's
so
right.
that'll be great.
Now, in the meantime, Delta Airlines has done something with which I agree. The airline showing some real moxie, I think, in canceling its sponsorship with the Fox Theater, the historic Fox Theater, because the theater hosted an event for Qatar Airlines. That's how I'm going to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Some say Qatar, others say Qatar, but Qatar Airlines. And I think Delta, they're one of the proud city movers and shakers. And why should they see something they're contributing to turn around and promote a competitor?
Well,
And
they're
Delta
also-
doesn't want those flights in here anyway.
Well, Delta doesn't like competition in this city anyway, but I would say this, there also is a big feud, if you read the business sections of the Wall Street Journal and everywhere, they're feuding over airline rights and everything else, so it's a bigger picture.
I love the ads, though, that say that Qatar, being a Gulf state, treats women badly, kind of like Saudi Arabia. I think that's perfect. I wish that the Democratic Party would recognize that inconsistency in human rights.
There was apparently a pretty ugly war of words going on between the CEOs of Delta and Qatar Airlines that I think has led and
Right.
sort of fueled this feud between the two of them. But I don't know what Fox Theater needs to be able to do. Maybe they need to have somebody over there to politically vet who they rent their facility to.
Jeff, we could
Right.
both
So as not to
they also
offend
said
their
that
sponsor.
Well, they
We could
also
do
said
that.
they didn't violate any sponsor agreement, but apparently it offended them enough to.
On this
make
one,
them
I'm all
withdraw.
for Delta.
Well.
Right? They've got a business interest at stake here. They're major benefactors to the Fox Theater. And
Well-
somebody at the Fox said, hey, here's a new airline. Let's give them a hand. Who was in that concert? Was that
It was Jennifer Lopez.
somebody famous, Jennifer Lopez?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. You know what? We could talk about this ban on the kids under 17 going to the movies and around the area, including Fayette County, alone, going to the movies alone,
yes.
in prime time.
Right.
But let's not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
If there's a crime problem, though, I don't have a problem with having a curfew type situation.
No, I don't either. That's
Yeah.
fine. Let's come back and be sure we have enough time to talk about elections. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
All righty then. We've got primary elections on Tuesday, both parties in the state of Georgia. Early voting concluded this past week, and you have to actually go cast a vote the American way. You have to go there, vote.
If
And
you
I hope
haven't
everybody
already.
does it. We're going to try to break down this ballot for you in the sense that there are two ballots, Republican ballot, Democrat ballot. Both parties will vote on things like special purpose local option sales taxes for schools. They're on the ballots in Fulton, DeKalb, Cobb, Gwinnett.
And they're nonpartisan
and they're
races,
nonpartisan.
especially for judges. Let's not forget to
And,
study the judges.
and both parties will vote for judges. That's right.
Right.
Now, there are some ballot quirks here, but just an example. In DeKalb, if you're a Republican, you can't vote in the DA's race between Robert James and Sherry Boston because you're busy voting for your local Republican representatives. It's just confusing, but we'll try and sort it out. Top of the ticket, U.S. Senate, Johnny Isakson will be the Republican nominee. Jim Barksdale appears that he will be the Democratic nominee unless they don't like that hat.
Right.
Oh, I don't even.
That hat is so strange. But anyway, and then you go down to Congress. So we have three really heavily contested congressional races in Georgia, starting with the third, which is South and West Metro. Phil, Mike Crane, the state senator, former state senator, seems to have the edge there.
He does have the name ID. That's an open seat. That's Lynn Westmoreland is retiring, the congressman there. I've always said keep an eye out on Jim Pace, but the other candidates may be surging, so that's a toss-up.
It's probably
Okay.
Perhaps runoff.
Yes, and no Democrats to contend within that.
No.
Now in the 11th district, make sure I got my numbers right, Phil. That is West Georgia going north out of Buckhead and Sandy Springs, all the way up to Bartow County, and that's a hot race. You've got Barry Loudermilk, the incumbent,
Right.
first-term incumbent,
Right.
being challenged by Daniel Cowan and William Lopp.
That's right.
And
And your pal Billy Davis, the felon,
Billy Davis, the felon, that's right. It's heavily Tea Party oriented.
up in the northern part of the
northern
district.
part of that district. And my sense is that if either of those other two has any strength at all, because of the number of candidates, they force a runoff.
There could be a runoff. William Lopp has put some money into it and done a lot of mailings, and so you're right, it could be.
And then in the 9th district, which goes up to the mountains, actually it goes a lot farther than that, but
Gainesville
it's
based.
centered around Gainesville and Hall County. Doug Collins versus Paul Brown, we've talked about it. Paul Brown's a carpetbagger in this instance. But I got to give Collins some points for designing an ad that looked like a UPS truck.
Right.
With their coloring and everything, and UPS said, no, you can't do that. But it was very clever, I thought.
Right. Now remember, Paul Brown used to represent about half of those counties in that district. So
Yes.
that is a factor.
All right, then you move to local races, and again, it depends on what party you're in. For example, if you live in Fulton County, you might want to vote for that commission seat between Emma Darnell and the former commissioner Bill Edwards, but Phil, voting Republican in Sandy Springs, won't be able to vote in that race. How do you
Right.
see it?
Right, and nobody else but the people in that district will be able to vote.
Well, that's
right.
true. That's
So,
true.
It's a district race.
I think that Emma Darnell will prevail because she has been constant and continuing to do things to address the needs of the
And
district.
Bill Edwards still has missing money on his campaign disclosures.
He has a little bit of a stain on his record.
It has everything to do with senior citizens in that district, and I think
Right.
that they're going to come up for Emma.
In North Fulton, you have a state Senate race where Brandon Beach, who's kind of become the image of Marta, is being contested by a fellow named Aaron Barlow from Cherokee County. And I wasn't paying that one much attention until I realized that Barlow had loaned himself $315,000. That'll get you in the race.
Well, it will, and that's a hot race. I will give a reminder to those folks in Cherokee County, it's North Fulton and Cherokee, that by law, MARTA cannot go into Cherokee County, and so they really don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, well, you're
So
right.
far.
You're right, so far. All right, and then in DeKalb County, where two of us live, that DA's race is one to watch. Sherry Boston against Robert James. I couldn't tell you how it's going to turn out. And you also have the tax commissioner race, where Stan Watson, the former commissioner, seeks to become the DeKalb County tax commissioner. There's a joke there, but I don't even need to get into it because everybody understands it, right? Something about a fox, and would it be a chicken coop?
Well,
Anyway,
Well,
Urban Johnson
That's the
is the
incumbent.
interim incumbent
yeah.
against Stan Watson.
Stan's popular on the South Side, and it's going to be a tight race.
But
And Susanna
to Dick's
Scott.
point, I mean, for the viewers, he has ethical problems a mile long, and let's just explain it.
Yeah,
Well,
and
it's
then a
interesting.
judgeship, an interesting race in DeKalb. Dax Lopez, who was torpedoed for his nomination at the federal court by Barack Obama. He's a Republican.
He wasn't torpedoed by
He
Barack
wasn't
Obama.
he was Barack
Torpedoed by
Obama's
David Perdue.
nominee,
By
and
David
I would
Perdue.
challenge the fact that he's a Republican dick. He left the Republican Party because his ads all over the place are, I'm Barack Obama's judicial nominee.
Well,
He was a member of the Federalist Society.
Yeah, it still is, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
well,
Which is
but now
Anthony
here Phil's
Scalia's
concerned
favorite group.
that he's not a Republican, and somebody else may be concerned. None of us, I don't believe, but that he's Hispanic. Except his opponent is pointing out that he's Jewish. It's not very nice.
No, it's not.
Roderick Bridges has got a flyer out. I got it.
That's right. That's
Says that his opponent's Jewish.
That's right. Roderick is an African American running for that judgeship. We should point out the judgeship is nonpartisan officially.
Right.
I know.
Officially.
I know.
And
then
it's non-religious too. I think. I think
we got to
Right.
get out. And Phil, you got some news in
Lord
Sandy
have
Springs.
mercy.
That's right. This is interesting. I mentioned on the broadcast a few weeks ago that there's a special city council election in Sandy Springs because Graham McDonald quit his post. And I heard from the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, just as we taped Friday, that they're opening an investigation on this special election to see if everything's on the up and up. So we'll have more news next week
Well,
on
and it's
that.
probably the voting rights, and there's only one place you can go to vote in that seat.
For that.
Yes, and there could be an absentee ballot problem and so forth.
Yeah, and you
And the
probably have to
timing, too.
run a triathlon to get there and other qualifications. Which, all right, we got to get out.
And how many bubbles in the
When we
bar
come
of
back,
soap.
winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And before that, let me just quickly say that if you don't like the way we tried to hopscotch around the political landscape for Tuesday's primaries, hey, you can find us on Facebook. We're always on YouTube, the Georgia Gang channel on YouTube, and we don't tweet.
I hope we do. I tweet.
You tweet? Okay. Jeff, winners and losers.
Freddie Gonzalez, I think he's a winner. He got canned by the Braves last week, but I still think he's a loser. He's just sort of the skipper on the deck of the Titanic. Maybe what they ought to be firing is Liberty Media. Isn't that the name of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Another winner's
The
got to be.
Braves were 10-30 on Friday morning.
How about that? And when you work till age 80.
And they fired Freddie by sending him an email about his plane ticket.
How about that? Wasn't
That was
that's a
really
very
classy.
gracious way of doing it,
It was
isn't
the
it?
airline that
It's
sent him
terrible.
the thing. It
Travel
was-
agent, I
And so,
think.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
It was the
Yeah,
airline.
yeah, pure
but the
Braves.
confirmation
Pure
of his-
Braves
Yeah,
PR.
that was
They're
bad.
doing a great job.
Yeah, what was
Glad
that
to
about
see
the
him in Cobb
Braves
County.
way?
Yeah,
They
right.
ought to serve $2 hot dogs.
How about Morley Schaefer?
Yeah.
CBS News, 84 years old, died a week after he retired. Great newsman.
Yes.
And
Great writer.
And you're not going to like this, but I saw a documentary last week called "Where to Invade Next" by Michael Moore. And if you don't watch this, you should watch it for one thing and one thing only, and that is the way Germany treats its history and teaches it to its children. And I think that that's something that we need to be able to do in the United States, along with a lot of the other things that's in this wonderful documentary. I highly recommend it.
Merit aside, Michael Moore is a guy who should never be allowed near $2 hot dogs. Okay, Alexis, go ahead.
Goodness. All right, I'm going to salute George Johnson, who was honored by communities and schools this past week as part of their annual fundraiser for the program that helps at-risk youth, and they're in several school systems in the metro area, so congratulations to him and them. Also, Christine Dempsey is the new Vice President of Radio for Public Broadcasting Atlanta, so welcome to Atlanta, and good for them and good for her. And Morehouse College had 3 valedictorians and with their graduation last week, so their congratulations to them for a job well done.
All right, Phil?
You know, I've got a winner I think we'd all agree on, and that's Jane Little. She was the 87-year-old bass player with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, and she, God bless her, she died the other day, but she's the longest serving player in an orchestra in American history, so we salute her.
The last thing she played on her double bass was There's No Business Like Show Business.
There you go.
Wow.
And I got a winner. You won't like this, but it's Donald J. Trump. And for those who may not always agree with him, he had a great list of conservative constitutional judges for the Supreme Court, and a lot of them were Federalists, Jeff. You'll appreciate that.
I think he's going to make
All
a
right,
great
and I will
liberal
just,
president.
a little election tidbit. I will make the Republican Party in Georgia a winner. They've got a ballot question Tuesday about whether we should expand school choice in Georgia. It includes the whole thing: private schools, vouchers, charter schools. It'd be a good chance for Republican voters to reinforce to party leadership that school choice is the real solution. And that's what I've got. That's my winner on the Georgia Gang. We'll see you next week.